With the modify stack sorted out and optimized for a symmetrical subdivision surface model, we can begin roughing out their proportions. I'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. Select the object and go to the modify panel and rename it. I'll call it head. And also change the object color. Click on the color swatch. In the AutoCAD ACI palette, I'll choose a light gray color and click OK. To rough out the proportions, we can scale all the vertices. Select the editable poly at the bottom of the stack and enable Show End Result. And then activate Vertex Subobject Mode. With the Select tool active, drag a big selection rectangle around all the vertices, and then choose the Select and Uniform Scale tool. You can scale up and down in Z, and that's no problem. We can change the height of that head. We can scale forward and back in Y, and again, no problem there. If we try to scale in X, though, we're going to have an issue in which the model either self-intersects or has a gap. All right, I'll undo that with Control-Z. The reason that's happening is because the gizmo is placed at the average location of all of those vertices. We need to move the gizmo to somewhere on the YZ plane, shown by this line here. And then when we scale relative to the YZ plane, all those points will move towards or away from that plane, as we expect. On the main toolbar, you've got a button labeled Use Pivot Point Center. Click and hold that to get a flyout, and there are three options. Use Pivot Point, Use Selection Center, and Use Transform Coordinate Center. That's the third one, and that's the one we want. When we choose that, then the gizmo will move to the center of the reference coordinate system that we've chosen from this pull-down list. And when we're in the default of View Coordinates and operating in a perspective view, then the gizmo is going to move to the origin of the world. And because the object is also at the origin and the line of symmetry is exactly on that YZ plane, now when we scale in X, all the points move towards or away from that YZ plane, just as we want. All right, cool. And you can switch back to the default Use Pivot Point Center when you're done with that. And now let's extrude out a neck. I'll maximize that perspective view with Alt-W, go into Polygon Subobject Mode, and select the two polygons at the bottom of that head. Hold down Control and select those two. We can flatten that out to make our extrusion work a little bit better. Just scale it in Z until it's roughly flat. And with those two polygons still selected, in the modeling ribbon, we can click on Extrude, and then click on one of those two polygons and drag upward, which will cause those faces to extrude outward from the model. When you release the mouse, you can see that we have two sets of extrusions here, and we're not really getting the result that we want. That's happening because there's an extra set of polygons inside the model. Let's turn Show End Result off for a moment to investigate. This is what's happened. We got these two polygons here for free, so we don't really want those. Hold down Control and click on those. And now I've got four polygons selected, the two at the bottom and the two at the seam, and then press Delete. And that erases those. Turn Show End Result back on again, and you may see a gap here, and that's because the extrusion didn't go perfectly straight down. We can fix that really easily by going once again into Vertex Subobject Mode and clicking a vertex, and with the Move tool active, position it at an X value of 0. So just type in a 0 down here and press Enter. And now it's moved to the origin and sealed up that gap. If you get a bunch of those vertices out of alignment, then you can scale them all towards the origin. This is a common thing that happens quite a lot, actually. As you work and do various commands, some of those points are going to get moved around, and you want to place them all back at an X value of 0. But you can't really do that on multiple selected vertices by using the Move tool. They will move if you type in a 0, but they'll all keep their relationship to one another, and they won't flatten out as you need them to. Okay, so I'm going to select all those border vertices. It's best to do that in the front view using Alt-W. Go up to the front view, maximize that with Alt-W again, and drag a selection rectangle to select all of those vertices at the seam. Okay, we'll go back to our perspective view, Alt-W, and check that and make sure we've got the correct vertices selected and none of the other vertices, just the ones at the seam. And once again, go into the Scale tool and choose Use Transform Coordinate Center And in the perspective view, scale in X. Just scale it down and keep dragging, and eventually you'll get to nearly 0. So that's how we can rough out the proportions of our character head.